silent or turn them off, please. It's very off-putting.
There should be a paper on the seats that tells you how this committee is run. Can I just remind you that can you please look at that and ensure that we try to accommodate everything that's on there, please. Membership of the committee then, we start all the things to Councillor Stoker.
Yeah,
Minutes of previous meetings then. We agree that was a true record. Any comments on there? Interest in lobbying, thank you. Then I'll take the council dinner.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, item 13, I've been lobbied by a neighbour of the site and personal opinion about it. This is what I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson. Councillor Taylor.
Nothing changed.
Madam Chair.
Wheelchair.
Thank you. Can I just say that I've been lobbied on 12 and 7. I saw item 7. No issues with that. Okay. Thank you. Admission on the public then.
I'd like to say private items.
Thank you. Deputations or petitions, anybody? No. Public question time. Do you believe this area? Yeah, if you like. Are you addressing this as a member of the public or
Well, I am a member of the public as well, of course. Thank you, Chair. A word or two of explanation. There are various conditions for deciding whether applications should go to committee or not. And these include departures from the development plan, they include the size of development, they include wind turbines, major infrastructure, and others considered appropriate by the director or the chairs of committees. Ward member requests can be put in, and in some cases a significant volume of local opinion, but those are not and, they are alternatives. What I'd like to know is how does this relate to the application at Brookfields Farm for a renewal of the temporary permission that was granted last year?
Yeah, I'm quite willing to come back as well.
Okay. I can't give you the specifics on Brookfield Farm, but I can set out the procedure that sets out where members are able, as ward councillors, to request a planning application or planning items go to committee in their ward. It's set out in the scheme of delegation, and that is also supplemented by what's out in the protocols for planning committees. It does require that ward members set out in writing their reasons, and that has to be confirmed by the chair of the planning committee as being valid. That can be then brought forward with those arrangements being agreed. That's for a referral to the planning committee.
Right.
On the specifics of Brook Farm, I'm happy to look into that as a separate matter.
We cannot talk about a separate application here. We're talking about a policy rather than the application itself.
Right, right.
I understand what your comments are, Councillor Bennett, but on a little more personal note, I'd like to just address your comments if you don't mind. Is that okay?
No, that's perfectly all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's been explained as to how we come to the decision, and in most parts, if it's a balanced decision, that we will, with myself and officers actually, looks to see whether there's any validity in an application coming back to this committee. On this particular application, we've not discussed this at all. However, what I will actually addressing the particular issue is promising people that they'll bring it to the committee. And I think we've got to see whether there's some validity, as has been explained, as to whether it is put on. Every application is subjective, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that there's got to be a real good reason for it to come to committee, that because under the delegated powers we can actually pass that delegation on to officers. I hope that addresses some of your comments.
Thank you. Yes, I've reserved my position on that. Thank you for your answer,
Yeah.
both yourself and Mr. Franklin. And I will consider how to reply to that. But thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Can I just say to you, if you do want to talk about that application and some reasons, then I'm quite willing to do that.
Thank you. I may well take you up on your offer.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Okay then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Side business were carried out this morning and all the three applications. Item 10, local planning authority appeals.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Julia Stedman, Team Lead in Development Management. As you can see, starting on page 9 of the agenda, there's just one appeal to report there. It was an officer decision which was dismissed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments? You want to be noted?
Noted, yes.
Okay, thank you. Planning applications then. We were starting off with the proposed diversion of the public footpath at Brook Meadows to Denby Day. This is item 11. Giles.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, my name is Giles Cheatham and I work for the Council on Public Rights of Way Matters. This item is a proposal to divert part of the public footpath of Brook Meadows, Denby Dale, to facilitate the construction of a dwelling under a planning permission so it can be granted. There's currently no vehicle access to the site directly from Brook Meadows because the path is higher down the road at one end. It slopes across the end of the road. And this proposal would allow access to be taken. It involves a minor change to the alignment of the path, which you can see on the screen in the agenda papers. So basically just moves the path slightly from, instead of going A to B directly, it goes C to D. So it's just, the new path will be slightly inside the site and a new path will be built and an access built where the path currently is from Brook Meadows. To facilitate the change in levels for the access, there'll be a slight steepening of the path as it runs northwards, north of Point A there, going up the plan towards Withyside. The agenda papers included a description and plan of the works as well. So provide vehicle access to site and allow development in accordance with the planning permission. And officers recommend that authority be given for an order to be made and for us to see confirmation of that order. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No speakers on that, anybody?
Move that, Chair.
Thank you. Second. Any more comments on that? No? Moving in a second to accept that. Officers' recommendations. All those in favour? More than Jazz.
Thank you, Chair.
And move on to item 12 then. This is the demolition of existing building, erection of a place of worship to Central Valley, Map 28, track 4.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Bill Topping. I'm the case officer of this proposal. This one came to committee the last committee, and you also undertook a site visit. It was referred at your request for two reasons: to collect additional information regarding traffic and highways issues and car parking around the site, and secondly, to undertake a cabot assessment with respect to establishing the value of the TPO trees on the site that would be lost as a result of the development. This is the site. Just a brief recap on the application. Site and the proposal. Site comprises an area just over 0.2 of a hectare. It's located within the Albic Centre as a whole there. The site is within the Kirklees of a Grade 2 listed building. This is the Grade 2 listed building. And the Kirklees and the wall and the Kirklees buildings are protected by that listing also. There are also a substantial number of protected trees within the site, which is shown here. So this is the application site here. This is the listed building. This is the Kirklees listed building, and these are the trees that are affected by the application. Full permission sought for the erection of a faith centre, place of worship. Facilities involved would be a prayer hall, multi-purpose hall, library, offices, meeting rooms and associated community facilities. Building would be 3 stories, appearing 2-storey at the front. This is the track road frontage, and 3-storey at the back. These are the sections here. So this is the listed building. This is track road, and these are the dwellings on the opposite side of the road. As you can see from the site plan, the actual siting of this building will necessitate the removal of the Kirklees listed building, which is here, all of the walling, and the majority of the protected trees. Issues before you. The principle of the use as a community facility within this location is accepted, so there's no objection in policy terms to do this use. There are site-specific uses relating to the impact of the heritage asset, which is a listed building. NPBF guidance indicates that any impact upon a listed building should take account of the level of harm that development may cause and set that against any potential community benefits. Now, the proposal here involves the demolition of one of the Kirklees buildings, the removal of large swathes of the wall. The setting itself is very, very close and very dominant relative to the existing listed building. In our opinion, and your officer's opinion, there is more than significant harm to the setting of this listed building as a result of this proposal. As such, the presumption is in favour of refusing the application unless you take a view that the level of community benefit outweighs that harm. Second issue, which relates to one that we referred to last time, trees and ecology, primarily trees. As I said before, the proposal involves the removal of the vast majority of these trees, and at your request, CAVET stands for capital asset valuation for amenity trees. That assessment was undertaken, and that value came out in the report at £283,000. So that gives an indication of the level of value of the trees that we would ascribe to the trees. That's not a figure which you have to match, as it were, in terms of mitigation or compensation, but it's just a means of ascribing a value to the trees. Obviously, that information is communicated to the applicants who came back to us with an email from Bashir with detail in just a second about the consultation exercise that they intended to undertake with the Batley Business Association about potential replanting and so on within the Batley area. There was no specific offer or anything in that respect, so we suggested a meeting with them, but I said that it hadn't been possible to actually arrange that meeting in time for a meaningful offer to be presented to you. So, notwithstanding the valuation, our view as officers is that the trees are valuable, notwithstanding any compensation or replacement. Their value is such that they should be retained, and our reason of refusal based upon the loss of the trees and habitat biodiversity is maintained. Certain highways, additional highways information was requested. You can request it yourselves here. We sent that information, we asked for that information. Adequate information has not been forthcoming still. The last thing we got was a suggestion that they would recommend a condition requiring a car parking management plan. And we don't have enough information against we can make an assessment still. So our reason for refusal with respect to the highways insufficient information also still stands. In summary, our recommendation is as before, reason for refusal on the 5 reasons as detailed in your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have 3 speakers on this. Mr. Sandraja, is it?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
On the clock.
I will do. Good afternoon. I will only talk to you about the 2 items from the last agenda, the last meeting we had here, which is traffic and trees. The trees, my colleague will address that. Construction will back in business. The intention is actually to plant as many trees as the tree officer recommends anywhere on site or within the back. So that bit can be dealt with, and I'm sure my colleague will explain it. On the traffic, this is a bit of a catch-22. At the last meeting, the specific was, tell us how the existing car park and the compound is used. We went out of our way to get this information to highway. We actually got video footage, we captured images of the intensity of the car park for that period between then and the time we submitted it. Sent to highway. Highway come back. Okay, we got this now. Can you have a look at the street outside? What's going to happen? Well, we never asked that before. Every time we do something, something comes up. And we're quite willing to do whatever it is, but we need to agree something. The last meeting said, tell us how the intensity. Actually, we explained that all. And the last email said, actually, we want the outside. Well, we can't, at the time given to us, give you that information. And he said, the alternative, tell us how you're going to deal with it. How we're going to deal with it is we're going to manage the car park. But there's ample of information we have. And I'm surprised if the officer hasn't passed it on to you. We tell you the footage from day, whatever we met, until the time we submitted. 24-hour period every day. It shows the number of parking places, what building has been used. But my guess is that you don't have that information because probably what we proposed to you. All you have now says the information is not adequate. No, it's not adequate. It's the additional information requested, which we didn't provide because it came at the last 11th hour. So be fair to us. Tell us what we want to provide. We provide. The alternative, I said, we will do a car park management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Abdul Razak?
Razak.
I apologise. That's okay.
Okay. I think it's fair to say that planning is a process, and where planning works best is when the applicant works with the officers. So in our early discussions with the case officer, we were in a journey, and the journey was that we made a lot of changes to the application. However, we couldn't deal with the issues that the officer said, which was primarily around the proximity to the heritage building and also the trees. Now, the officer was quite keen to work with us and make the case here, so you as elected officials actually make that decision, which is fine. And as my colleague has already said, we feel that there's been shifting of sands here, there's been shifting of emphasis. The report doesn't, for example, refer to the fact that in addition to the loss of trees, on site we will at least put four additional trees back on there of a greater value than what there is at the moment. In fact, the report says that there's 22 trees that were removed. 5 were not protected by TPO. 4 were protected by TPO, but were small suppressed trees with limited public community value. 4 were in poor condition and should be removed regardless of the development, which leaves 9. And what we're saying actually is of those 9, 4 will be replanted on there, and with our discussions with local partners, more will go. We said to you last time that actually where there is a net loss of trees, it will be provided off-site. That was a reasonable offer we made. So the caveat judgment suggests a very high figure. If that figure was to be applied, that would make that scheme very unviable for us. I think I'm appealing to you in the context of the NPPF and the presumption towards sustainable development. On this basis, the feedback that we've got back from our community is that this is a worthy project and one which will derive a lot of public benefit for the community, which will far outweigh the harm that has been alluded to in the report by the case officer. So I appeal to you, the members of this committee, to make our case fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Bashir Khan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to touch on the things that I've listened over the years and how important it is. Our life revolves around the faith centre. That's everything to us. And it's not just a place of prayer, it's a place where we do good work. Ambulance was established in 1957, affiliated to Seven Mosque. Our HIPAA project was a flagship project in City Challenge. We were short of £250,000 to complete the HIPAA project. Council loaned us £250,000 to pay back in 3 years, we paid back in 2. It's a focal point for majority of local activities in North Kirklees. Millions of pounds, and I mean millions of pounds, raised for good causes locally, nationally, internationally. We worked hard, so hard, we've got awarded by the Queen twice. I've been down personally to St James's Palace and Buckingham Palace to receive the awards. I include this charity work. First donation was to the Mayor's Appeal back in 1964, then the Aberfan disaster in Wales, up to the point of the 2 tsunamis taking place in Indonesia. We raised £1 million to build the whole village with all the facilities. Over 10 years it took to do the project. I've just come back last night, 3 o'clock this morning, from doing charity work in Gambia and Senegal. We assisted 1,000 families there and a big orphanage in Senegal, 141 children from babies to 17 years old. So all our work, everything revolves around that, and that's how we raise money. And our HIPAA Centre has been supported by all the councils over the years that I know of. The proposed Faith Centre will serve a beacon project for Kirklees residents and something which Kirklees Council will be proud of. The proposed Faith Centre project will complement the work which the Council are doing in stopping the radicalisation and extremism in the community. This is why we are supported by so many people. The community has been working on this planning application now for a number of years without any meaningful progress. We have spent thousands of pounds preparing reports and surveys just to get to this stage. And we seem to be pushed back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We manage large functions all the time without any problems. We're going to do yellow lines, and we will, on a Friday when it's busy, manage that nobody parks in front of the mosque or anything like that. We will manage that. I can give you a promise on that. We've already agreed with police and highways for the security and everything else that goes with it. There are a number of housing projects. When you're facing the listed building on the right-hand side, 1,200 square meters of a house is being built, which is actually nearer than the Faith Centre is going to be to the listed building. So, does the residential accommodation have a different rule to a Faith Centre? Sorry.
Finish up.
Right. It's a wonderful opportunity for Kirklees Council to embrace and support a wonderful local partnership project which will undoubtedly enhance the lives of so many people in the immediate vicinity. And it's all in walking distance to the Faith Centre.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ryan Nash to address the comments on the 17th.
Through you, Chair, ranking the Highway Development Appointment. Although technical note has been submitted by Sanders & Associates, details of information on the current parking situation is considered to be incomplete in terms of information, in particular in relation to weddings. A traffic summary has been provided detailing parking movements throughout the day. However, there is a section within the report where a wedding has taken place, and this information has been left blank with no further information provided. It's considered that this information is needed up front to make an informed decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members?
Last time this came to mind, I did have sort of some concerns about the street scene. but obviously there's been no objections from the houses opposite. And I was made aware that there is an element of some modern houses and other builds. So I don't have any objection after having thought about it regarding the street scene. However, the trees I'm more concerned about. It's just some information I was regarding the trees, because I don't know enough about trees to be able to make a decision on this. If those trees were removed to another site, maybe a more prominent site, what's the chances of those trees taking root and surviving, or is it just a futile exercise and the trees will die? So I think, in order to make a judgment, I'd like to know if those trees can successfully be transplanted elsewhere and thrive.
I know the answer to it, but do you want me to answer it?
Oh, yes.
They won't be transferred.
Right.
They'll be replacement trees.
But they're not going to be the same value then.
They won't be, certainly won't be the same value. No. They'll be replacement trees. Councillor Sokol.
Chair, when I was first time elected councillor about 29 years ago, I visited this Alma Centre, and that time I found I was it's too big, this Alma building, that I was for the community. But since that I visited the Alma Centre a few times, then I found out it's a bit too small for the community, because the community grown up in the area, in the Parkway area, and more and more people visiting this one. So, as the community growing up, the community needs growing up, need a big building. That's what they come back on this extension of the building. I was reading this paragraph on, there is a 10.4, it's quite clear, they say, this won't be addition to the existing prayer room, because the existing prayer site is not a big enough. When there are some events happening there, people have to go to the nearby mosque for their prayer, then come back again there. That's the trouble. I think the local community experience there. I think it's a good idea to get this one a center. Even it made people to stay in the one building, to traveling back. I think it won't affect any effect on the main road. So with regard to the trees, I got this officers updated report which I understood it. But according to the speaker over there as well, the applicant or the local community, they are prepared to discuss this tree plant or whatever how the officer would like to. I think the verbal report is there. I don't think we need to defer this application again just for to sit down with the officer and the local being to discuss the tree planting. But I don't think it's good for the community or good for the council as well to defer this application again. I will go for to approve this application and subject to the condition and the successful this meeting with the local people on replanting trees and the traffic management. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just say it's rather unfortunate that there's a substitute, because we did have a long debate on this last time.
I'm sorry for that.
No, it's fine. What I'm saying to you is that it was deferred on two matters. One was about the trees, the value of the trees, and one was about the ag waste management. And really, them are the ones that we should really be
Thank you, Chair. I think we should actually recommend we defer this because there's some questions about the car parking, and there seems to be some confusion as to what we want and what we're supplying. And possibly blame to that, but whilst there's a bit of a discrepancy there, I think it's only right to give us the opportunity to address those issues. And I'd like a bit more information about the trees because I'm actually looking at it on Google Earth. It's fine saying we're going to plant some more trees, but I'm looking and I don't see where in the immediate vicinity you can plant any more trees. It's in a very built-up area, and those trees clearly provide a lot of fresh air in that area. It's very built up. It is about the only green space to some considerable distance. So I'm concerned about the trees. So I'd like some more information about some hard proposal on when they're going to plant trees and some sorting out between the users, current users and officers about the car park, and let's go get those bottom. So I would recommend deferral to the next committee meeting with a rider that one way or the other we decide it, we don't mess around. So if there's any information that needs doing on both sides, from our officers, all the applicants, that information is readily available, come what may, for that meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. I do think that if you look at the reasons for refusal, if you take out number 4, which is the size and scale of the building, which I think, on reflection, we can be okay with, given what it is. I didn't plan that. You know, it's a mosque, and in many respects, I think it's whilst it's quite different from the listed building, I don't think it does too much damage to the listed building.
Can we, sorry, they're obviously working upstairs, can we ask them to stop?
But the others, I fear, is still unresolved, despite what despite the recommendations that we've received. It does seem to me that we haven't sorted out what exactly to do with the trees, or how exactly we are going to manage the traffic implications of this. And in terms of deciding a planning application, these do need to be nailed down. And as Councillor Turner said, deferral would enable the application to be brought back, and provided the information that's given is satisfactory, we would make a decision on it. So if Councillor Turner was moving deferral, which he was, I will second that for those reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Lorna.
So I wasn't here at the last committee meeting, so but I have read the papers that have come through. And I'm talking about the trees specifically. I was disappointed in the fact that yes, there was a bit of information coming in about the cover in regards to the value of the trees, but there seems to have been a breakdown of information that you could have provided with councillors, and how many trees there were, and obviously the breakdown we've just received now is if there are only 9 trees that are actually at the moment that are going to be needed, that kind of cover the value of the trees, why wasn't that kind of information given? The value compared to the community value, it seems to be the question to me. It is a part of my ward, and I can tell you definitely, in terms of monetary work, I can definitely say that would definitely look anywhere near the value or how much it would bring to the community. Is it 4 trees that they've said that they've put back at the site, and there's a possibility of another 5 trees that they're looking to see if they can fit around. My colleague just mentioned that he wasn't aware of any green space close by, and I'd just like to let the committee know that there is a park on the Kirklees Road which has a lot of, again, protected trees,
that could be a part of consideration, and we've got that angle there. It has been, I mean, I've been on this committee for a while, and it has been in discussions and come through for quite a while. I do think that if there is a possibility to work with with Aligma to actually get the fact, we're not going to, in terms of asking for the monetary stuff, to asking for £250,000 worth of trees, I think my community will suffer, but perhaps an agreement with Aligma to say if you can give something along those lines for that. Is that okay?
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm agreeing at the moment with Councillors Turner and Pinner that we should be preparing this for a reason. One, I've heard this always there was refusal yesterday, because at the last meeting and the last discussion on this, we talked about the value of our dignity to the community and its vision, and the value of that vision, and that's carried over, and if anything, that's more embedded in my mind than it was before. But equally, on the other side of that coin, I wouldn't like us to go away today with approval, without the accountability on both sides of what's happening with the questions that have been raised in this report. So I think there's an element of protecting both sides of both the applicant and the council about what happens here with trees. I take on Councillor Lumat's point about the relative value to the community and to the environment, but of course they're one and the same. So we need to make sure that the balance is right, and that we can bring that back to officers so that they can bring us a full view so we can make our decisions. So with that in mind, I would be supporting the government. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson,
yes, it has been mentioned, Chair, that point 4, which is the proposal of liability with the scales, isn't relevant, and what we're discussing more or less is the traffic and the trees. I do think that the ethical all points that the officers have put into the refusal is relevant. And if you look at the green space that's provided there, and the benefits to the wider community by having that green space, and having an imposing 3-storey building at one side and 2 at the other, I find is a massive negative for the wider community to deplete that green space. So I see no reason to defer. I'll go with it if everybody else wants to, but I want it to be included that the proposal always includes the size and scale of the building and not just trees and traffic.
Well, it's just the reasons as to why it was deferred for, that's all.
Yeah.
Bill, can I ask, was a copy of the Cabinet report sent out to them?
It was certainly sent to the applicant. So
Was it not sent to members?
No, so I'll give you a copy of that.
Yeah. I'm just going to say I've seen that report. I'd like to just come back on that. That is a nominal figure. It's just the actual value. It doesn't say you've got to replace it with that same amount of value. It's saying that is really what the trees are worth, really. And I know some of the proposals that were put forward nowhere near that amount of value. I don't think my first comments when I saw the report was that you can't expect people to be paying that amount of money, but it was a nominal figure. There was a valuation that was put on. I'm listening to what people are saying here, and I can understand that. The issues have been unresolved at this moment in time, and I think there is extra information that's got to come back, and I'm really looking at the applicants. You really do need to come back with these. I know you've got a good idea working with the business, the community people, and it's not to put these trees back on where they are, or maybe not in that proximity, but somewhere else, to be able to replace them trees and the value of them trees going somewhere else. So I think there is some good ideas here, but I have to say this to you, you've got to portray that back to this committee to tell them what you're wanting to do, and there is insufficient information here. I'm sort of coming down on the fact that we should really prefer it, get that information back as quickly as we possibly can. I understand what you're saying about your report with Sanderson's as well, and that seems to be a moving feast. Let's just work together and get this application put together, because it is good for the community, and I take on board what you're saying, Councillor Thomas. You know, you have got to take everything into consideration. When you defer the item, you should really be saying what you want to defer for, because we have discussed it. So the first mover was the mover to actually approve the application. Sorry? Yeah. Right, so we can take the deferral first. Do you want to comment on Councillor Scott?
No, I just want to make comment. If you are proposing that only the issue will be agreed, we need to get more information.
The trees and the mountains, it's again, we haven't had them deferral items addressed. They haven't been addressed, and no.
Yeah. Then I have no hesitation to go with you.
Yeah. And we will get it back as quickly as possible. We'll get it back into the next meeting. And please work with the officers to try. I appreciate sometimes it's extremely hard. Councillor Tag, you did indicate.
Yeah, this is my part of what you know, and as we understand from the applicants, as well as from the community, it's going to benefit, it's going to benefit the wider community.
I think that argument has been won. I don't think there's an issue there. Right, we've got a motion and a second to defer this to the next meeting. All those in favour? Anybody against? That item deferred then. Thank you. Item 13, this is the election of 8 dwellings at Westfield Hotel, Whitehall Road.
Westfield Road access and the pub itself, Whitehall Road frontage, and then the dwellings to the rear on Green Acres Way. The application is in full and includes the demolition of the existing building. I thought it would be interesting to include the original submissions by the applicants, which included the erection of 9 dwellings with a layout as shown above that officers considered to lack any relationship with Whitehall Road and therefore detracted from the character of the area. Following discussions with officers, the application has been revised. The revised scheme proposes 4 pairs of semi-detached properties located to the site frontage with Whitehall Road, which turns plot 1 to front Westfield Lane to ensure street presence at this point. The development retains the use of the access to the rear of the dwellings. The dwellings proposed are 2 storeys offering 2 and 3 bedroom accommodation. Each dwelling offers off-street parking and garden space. The materials proposed are natural stone and slate. The main issues relate to policy PLP 48, of which significant weight is attached to the publication of draft local plan policy. This is regarding the loss of the community and local facilities. The loss of the fund has to be considered in respect of this. Further information submitted by the agent has been considered in this respect, and assessment is outlined in the report, paragraphs 10.5 to 10.10. The conclusions are that due to the economically troubled record for the public house, its closure approximately 3 years ago, and the lack of interest in its reopening, that the loss can be allowed, meeting criteria B of policy PLP 48 insofar as the use is not currently viable. The erection of 8 dwellings on the site would boost the supply of housing in the area, and housing applications should be considered in the context of the presumption in favour of sustainable development. The
The redevelopment of this site will contribute to housing delivery. The development proposed is considered to sit well within its surroundings, respecting the prevailing pattern of existing development and responding to local character and design. The scheme ensures prominence and presence to the junctions both road frontages. There is a mixed palette of materials in the area. The development of the site proposes natural stone, which is considering the prominence of the site is appropriate. The development is therefore considered to meet the aim of Chapter 12 of the NPPF, contributing positively to the area and meeting the requirements of policies in the UDP and the publication draft local plan. It's considered that there will be no undue impact on neighbouring occupants. The dwelling is a two-storey of a scale similar to existing dwellings in the vicinity. The development meets standards regarding space about buildings, offering adequate and needed space for future occupants. Due to the vulnerability of occupants to potential for noise disturbance from road traffic, environmental health has recommended that noise attenuation measures are incorporated into the proposals. With the inclusion of conditions, the proposals are in accordance with the aims of the policy. It's considered that the local highway network can accommodate the size of development proposed and will not materially add to any matters of highway safety when taken into account the established use of the site. I refer you to my colleague in Highways to further address matters regarding access and parking.
Through you, Chair. Summarise the highway section of the report. The proposed development of 8 dwellings to utilise the existing point of access via Westfield Lane. The proposal is forecast to generate 7 two-way vehicle movements in the AM and PM peak periods. Whilst it's acknowledged that the former public house is now not in use, this is considered a significant reduction in the comparison, which will generate up to 24 two-way movements in the PM and weekend peak periods if the pub was to reopen. Loops have been cut into the carriageway at the exit onto Westfield Lane to pick up vehicles waiting if the Whitehall Road green phase traffic light is clear. This will create a green phase exiting the development at the site entrance. In addition to this, a key clear mark is provided to allow free access into the site. A suitable layout has been submitted to allow sufficient off-street parking and internal turning for a refuse collection vehicle to enter and exit the site in forward gear. Thank you, Chair.
To conclude, the redevelopment of the site for 8 dwellings is considered to meet policy guidelines and, in spite of objections, will be beneficial in terms of locating housing in a sustainable location. The proposals have been assessed in respect to matters of access and highways and are considered to comply with relevant policies. The proposal is considered by officers to be in accordance with the aims of the relevant Kirklees unitary development plan policies, publication of local plan policies and the NPPF. As such, the recommendation is to approve including the list of conditions contained in your report. Nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to ask you for the benefit of members that wasn't on site this morning, just to tell them about that application, previous application. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Across the road.
Through you, Chair. There was a previous application on the opposite side of this proposal. It was refused on highways grounds and the appeal was dismissed. Now, the reason for refusal was because exit onto Westfield Lane was not achievable without having to reverse onto the highway. So this proposal actually addresses that because they can exit and enter the site and forward gear.
That's fine. Thank you. Paula Ganfield, please.
Good afternoon. Our objections are not to the development of the houses, but to the access to the site and the potential to create more congestion and danger to what is already an extremely dangerous junction and has been the scene of several serious accidents. I use this junction most days, and there are very few occasions when I can turn right into Westfield Lane without driving through the red light. It's notoriously a junction where drivers jump the lights. We've seen an increase in cars using the garage as a shortcut to avoid the lights, despite there being a no entry sign. I have turned right on several occasions only to be met with a car facing me on my side of the road. Turning into our drive, I have to rely on drivers' good nature to let me through. Cars can pass me on the inside, but lorries can't, and with the tankers from New Farm doing 55 trips 24/7, together with increased lorry traffic, this can cause a backlog. With 6 accesses, not including the proposed new development, between the traffic lights and the box junction at the junction of Greenacre Avenue, I'm concerned the new development will cause even more congestion and danger throughout this crossroads. I am also concerned that in the last week, amendments have been made to the existing application and new plans have been added. It's my belief that once an application has been submitted, any changes should be subject to a revised application and go through the prep process regarding publication and allowing time for objections. This hasn't been done. I also have concerns with paragraph 10.1, which states new loops have been cut between the access and the stop line to pick up vehicles from the new development. I ask why this work has been carried out prior to the approval of the plans. The amendments show quite major changes in the access, including new road markings. I also believe there may be encroachment on land not within the ownership of the applicant. I believe this report does not represent the planning application site correctly. The applicant refers to trees beyond the boundary. It states that these trees are to be retained. These trees are our trees within the boundary of our property. The area between our boundary and the boundary of the application site, where it states more tree planting will be carried out, is not within the ownership of the applicant. This is an area of no man's land. Any encroachment on this land would require application to land registry. In conclusion, I am concerned that in the quest to fulfil government targets for housing development, applications such as these are being hastened for approval without due process and also with disregard to safety issues and the opinions of local objections. Mr. Chairman, I do have the legal documents with me today, and I'm quite happy to share those with you.
Could you present them to the legal officer?
Yeah, I don't want them for public consumption, obviously, because there are.
Okay. Andy Keeling, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. My name is Andy Keeling and I'm a planning consultant. I'm here speaking on behalf of the applicant. So I want to cover 2 matters today, really. One's about the principle of development and then the other about the highway matters that have been raised. The site is in a sustainable location within an existing urban area. It's a brownfield site where development is encouraged by all planning policy to be located. You have all seen the stories in the paper about the LDF proposals and people saying, get things on brownfield sites, not on our greenfield sites. Okay, the reporting might be a bit harsh, but the principle is there. Planning policy also promotes the efficient use of land. It shouldn't be left vacant, it shouldn't be left standing. Where possible, new dwellings should be built, especially where, and this is, I'll bring it up once more, you don't have a 5-year housing land supply. We're getting closer, but it's not there yet. So that's emphasised by that lack of housing land supply, but it is still there anyway in planning policy that you should promote the use of brownfield sites for new residential development. I would also say that in terms of use, in terms of land use, residential as opposed to a public house will probably be seen as a benefit on this particular site, which is close to other residential properties, and as a principle should be welcome. Moving on to the highway matters. First of all, this is not a new access you've seen today, but it exists, and it serves an existing use, which is a public house. There are 51 parking spaces within that site. Your report says 33 at one stage, but there are 50 or 51. And in terms of overall use, you have heard from your planning officer, your highway officer, that the trips generated here are less than the existing use. So it's an existing access in an optimum position that can be achieved within the site, You can't put it elsewhere, you wouldn't want it off the main road, and it will serve less vehicles than now. So as a matter of principle, you have to take into account the previous use of the land. The appeal's been mentioned, of the one opposite. That's not comparable because it was a new site and vehicles reversed. So, in terms of ownership, Chair, which has just been brought out, I understand that the appropriate land registry documents have been provided to your officers to check. So in conclusion, Chair, I'd say that the principle of development is acceptable, the number of dwellings is reasonable, it isn't overdevelopment, and the access is actually better used for residential purposes than the previous use. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Joe, can you just make a comment on the other document?
Yes, Chair. The application site is wholly, as far as I can see from my land registry research, within the ownership of the applicant. The areas of land referred to in these types of documents fall outside the application site.
That's fine, that's all. Thank you. Members? Do you indicate Councillor Lawson?
Yes.
Go on then.
Right, okay, I'll do it first. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Did your finger in the air?
We're testing the wind.
So on this application, we've heard that the traffic movements will be representing a watering down of the amount of traffic movements, so they're actually on its current use, and that's understood. I think what concerns me most when I looked at this today, and knowing this site as well, is that the amount of traffic that goes to and from this site, and stands still outside the site, is actually really quite intense. So it's more the environmental issues here that are concerning me rather than some of the technical planning issues. So through you, Chair, I'd just like to ask about the ventilation scheme that's in the conditions and the noise mitigation schemes and what those might look like and when they would occur. Would we see those schemes fully worked out before we started breaking ground on those? So
thank you. I'll come back to them, John. Councillor Pitt.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Mrs. Ganfield said, the development itself, I think, is actually quite well done. Certainly, when I looked at the previous plan, that frankly looked awful and paid no respect whatsoever to the surrounding houses. However, there is still the access, which by all sort of absolute criteria is in an unfortunate place. But I dare say I won't get very far if I suggest we don't use that access because it's already there. If it were closed off, we couldn't redevelop the site anyway. Because one of the things I did look at was putting an access onto Whitehall Road, but it's not unreasonably been pointed out to me that Whitehall Road is actually busier than Westfield Lane, and forming an access onto Whitehall Road, particularly one relatively close to the traffic lights, is perhaps not a good idea, albeit perhaps a slightly less bad idea than the one that on Westfield Lane. I'd just like to expand a bit on an issue that Councillor Wilson mentioned, and that is to do with air quality at what is a relatively busy junction, and the possibility of using landscaping condition in order to provide more vegetation on the site, which might act in some way as a mitigation of the carbon dioxide that gets pumped out by vehicles. And I don't know whether that's possible. It is slightly difficult because these houses are relatively close to the main road. Unlike the ones further down Whitehall Road, which is set back with a garden in front, and that's true of all of them down that side, going towards Chain Bar. They've got relatively substantial front gardens. So these are much closer to the main road. Can I also touch upon the road safety issue, which Mrs. Ganfield mentioned? And I can confirm that the number of times when I've used this junction, people jumping the lights seems to be quite prevalent. And I know this is not something that the applicant can necessarily do anything about, but the small addition of more traffic to the junction, well, I'll leave that one hanging because that clearly is an issue on that junction which highways probably need to pick up perhaps by other means. Generally speaking, however, and assuming that the issue of, I know what I was going to mention, this plan that we have had, it doesn't show the red line on there, but at least it's vague enough to indicate some of the trees on the left-hand side of that plan, which actually is Mrs. Ganfield's garden, that is slightly misleading.
It's misleading, but it's not.
It's
material.
It's not material, but it does give the wrong impression.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Members, anybody else? Can I just come back on a couple of things? Ryan, can I ask you, is there any cameras on that?
As far as I'm aware, no.
Can you ask the accident reduction team as to why that's not the case? So many jumping the lights.
Yeah, it's very prevalent.
And it's certainly that's not relevant to us. It's the question that can be asked. I agree with you, John, about the and I know we discussed it on the side, and that is about the reduction in the air quality. The air quality is bound to be pretty poor there. But having looked at the design, we can't do anything with the trees because I'm pretty sure any insurance will say that we can't add any more trees on there. But it would be interesting, if you don't mind, if we pass that on to anything that's the mitigation sort of measures. Can we pass that on to local members rather than it come back to committee for them to just have a look at? Is that okay? Is that all right? As opposed to it coming back here and we deciding.
We'll pass it on to our colleague.
Is that okay? Well, you can comment. I think the access, I think that's been addressed. I think we have got, it's not perfect, but I think you said it, Councillor Bennett, about the fact that the design was poor before, so we managed to get a good design now out to something using the existing access. So, are we a bit over in that? Is anybody willing to move this? I'm willing to move it. Are you moving it, Councillor Bennett? Is anybody second it? Councillor Thompson? Right, don't move in a second to accept the officer's recommendation with the extension to the condition about the mitigation. Can we make sure members approve all of that? Is that okay? Yeah. All those in favour? Anybody against? Applications approved then. Thank you. Item 14, this is reference 6 Woollen's National Guild and Associate Market Reform. We will have name and name properly.
My name is Lucia Hale. I'm the case officer for this application. This application has been brought to the Head Woollen Subcommittee and the size of the application site is over 0.5 hectares. The application relates to a vacant area of enclosed land, formerly Woodwell House residential land, which is currently used by the council as storage. The site is unallocated land which borders the Crossbank Valley Conservation Area to the north. Members visited the site at including a private office and overnight accommodation for 2 staff. The dwellings are made up of 2 blocks of 3 one-bedroom bungalows with a staggered layout across the site from west to east. Each dwelling would have a private outdoor amenity space with a suitable layout and facilities to enable the individual to live as independently as possible within the community. Ancillary facilities are also proposed on site, including a private office and overnight accommodation for up to 2 staff with access and parking provision. The dwellings and staff block will be constructed from a mixture of yellow facing brick and vertical cladding boards with elevations with a cement slate roof. Existing access will be upgraded to improve highway safety and pedestrian access. Officers consider that the proposed development is acceptable in terms of scale and layout, sitting well within the local area, with no impact on visual and residential amenity of future or neighbouring residents, with no highway safety concerns. As a proposed development is a residential development which would provide supported residential accommodation for 6 residents with learning disabilities, officers consider that the development would be of benefit to the local community by providing a much required service. Officers consider the application to be in compliance with both local and national policy. The proposal is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Summarise the highway section of the report. Due to the nature of this proposed development, there is more than sufficient parking provision associated. Internal turning for a rescue vehicle has been provided. Sight lines from Trevelyan Lane is being secured by condition, along with the relocation of the existing bus stop. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's no speakers, members.
Come on, get it.
There's no objection from the no stay forward.
Councillor Turner.
I'll second it. We're moving to approval.
Councillor Green.
Through you, Chair, I just want to ask a question about whether or not this would be for residents long term, or would it be almost like a learning tool for autistic adults, where there would be like a short term lease on the house. It's just, I've got a parent of somebody with autism, and I would be interested to know if it was like.
Can I just stop us there, because that is certainly not material to the application. Could you ask someone to go back and get back to Councillor Engineer?
Yeah.
That's okay. It's not part of the application, so that's okay. Councillor Lawson.
Yeah, just absolutely no problem with the principle of this. Absolutely what you should do in a man like this. Quick question about design. Yellow brick, timber, and grey slate. These are quite uniform buildings. There's kind of no little architectural touches in them, as far as I can see, which can make all the difference to the places that we live in. Do we have any examples of buildings like this that we currently have in the area, or anything like that? We usually can ask that question.
I think because it's one of the first the council has done, it's taking people with very specific and very acute mental and learning difficulties and behavioural issues. There's something about the material and palettes that is appropriate to their health and need benefit. So we haven't done it in this borough before. It is a really important project for the authority to do. This is quite traditional about what other authorities have done with similar specialist accommodation.
So, if I may, I did pick up on the uniformity and did wonder whether that might be related to its actual use and its intended use.
Could well be.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to highlight that as an issue that possibly, if it's been intended to and this has been fully considered, then I'm happy with that.
It's similar to people with dementia, actually.
Yes.
Exactly the same.
Yes, so I'm happy if it's been fully considered, then I'm happy with it.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
No, I just want to know, are there residents will be all ages, any age, or young people or adults?
No, it's not material to this application.
Not just fine.
If you want to feedback, if you want to get some feedback from members, as a seem quite interested in it. I don't think there's an issue there at all. We really have to make decisions on things that material to the application. Councillor Woollen.
It was just like on what Councillor Lawson said. We've had a lot of work being part of one of the councillors for the ward as well. It just sits on the boundary, so it's actually back west, but it sits on the boundary. So we've done a lot of joint work together in terms of trying to see. We actually had those questions raised about the colour and the uniformity and everything like that. But again, we said there was a whole bit of looking at the type of people that we were catering at the building for would be beneficial for having them that colour.
Okay then, moving on a second to accept this officer's recommendation. All those in favour? Anybody against? That's approved then. Thank you. Item 15, this is the direction of single storey front and rear extension rear garden, window 6, Martin Grove, Kirklees.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Lucy Camille, I'm the case officer of this application. The application has been brought to the head of Woollen Committee. The application was submitted by Councillor Woollen Board Councillor for Dewsbury South. The application relates to a two-storey end terrace dwelling located on Morton Grove in Thornhill, Leeds. The site is unallocated land and is not within a conservation area. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a single-storey rear extension to replace an existing conservatory, a dormer window to the rear, a porch extension to the front elevation, and the creation of off-street parking to the front. The proposed single-storey rear extension will replace an existing conservatory. The extension will project 3.5 metres with an eave height of 2.3 and height of 3.4 metres. The proposed porch would project 1.5 metres and a height of 2 metres, and the proposed rear dormer will project 4.2 metres with a height of 2.6 and is set in from all elevations within the roof form. The proposed vehicle access and off-street parking will be provided to the front of the dwelling directly from Morton Grove. Morton Grove is not a classified road. The proposed extension will be constructed from materials to match the host dwelling. Officers consider that there to be no impact on visual or residential amenity as a result of the proposed extensions, and there are no highway safety issues. This proposal is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No speakers. Can I just, I don't know whether people understood that this is Councillor C's property. He didn't just submit it as a referral. It's his property too. Okay. Councillor Lawson, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Normally, I would say, is this just here because it's council and because it is. I just probably make the comment that it's good to see that issue of negotiation actually sort of resulting in a different outcome going forward, and it's nice to see that officer recommendations of the system taken on board. So I'll move.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll second it.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm moving on second to accept officer's recommendation. All those in favour? Anybody against? Mr. President, thank you. We're on the site visit this morning, an extension alteration to existing outbuilding with great dwelling, or an accommodation associated with 32 Fulton Road, Southend, Kirklees.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Lee Thomas, and I'm case officer for this application. The application has been brought to the Woollen Committee at the request of Councillor Mrs. Armour. Members visited the site this morning. The site was Number 32 is a semi-detached two-storey dwelling located on Fulton Road in Southampton. This is the host dwelling here, and as you can see from the photograph, there's a large outbuilding in the garden pit. The plan here shows what was approved in 2001. So this is the original garage and the extension that was approved. So from your site visit, you'll be aware that the outbuilding has already been significantly extended without planning permission. Planning Commission is now sought for the erection of extensions and alterations to the existing outbuildings to create a dwelling for annexed accommodation. So the existing building will be significantly extended to the front, so this area here, a small extension there, an increase in height, as you can see here, and then dormers and a porch feature at the front. So the main issues for consideration with this application relate to visual amenity and also residential amenity. So firstly, given the scale and design of the building, which has the appearance of an independent dwelling in the garden of 32, officers have concerns that the annex building will be outside through the area and will be overly prominent in the street scene. So as you can see from this photograph, the outbuilding is already very visible when viewed from Midfield Road, and also here from Flockham Road. The proposed building is also considered to not relate appropriately to the host dwelling and would result in overdevelopment of the site. Secondly, by virtue of habitable windows inside elevation of the building, there'll be direct overlooking into the rear limit space of 130, which is this area here. There are no highway safety concerns and no representation has been received, but for the reasons that I've just discussed, the recommendations for review.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, please.
Yeah. I came here just to observe, but there are other properties in the area which has bigger extension than mine. Down the road, Headfield Road, Stratton Road, somebody with a very massive building. Opposite my house, that is 8 bedroom houses, 2 of them. And mine is very small, and if you look at it from there, it shouldn't be an issue, I think. The side extension, I can withdraw that bit on the side, but I think the height is not a big issue either. So I'm building this simply for my purpose, so I don't have to go upstairs. That's the reason why I'm doing this.
Thank you.
It's a consideration.
Members?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, just one small observation. Looking at the plan that we have given to us, showing the new extension on the outfit, it seems exceedingly close to the host building. I don't know what the distance across there is, but it can't be more than about 3 metres. Which even if you've got blank walls, to me it's still not that's a brilliant idea.
There's a distance of 1.5 metres.
That's even closer. Well, thank you. That makes my point.
Anybody else? Can I just mention something on this? And I feel, I think most members actually passed my annex 18 months ago, something like that, and I feel a certain obligation now to just make a comment on this one, and that is that when I did mine, when I completed mine, I stuck absolutely rigidly to the planning permission that I was given. Absolutely rigidly. And obviously, the people would have come back to me anyway. But in actual fact, the application that was given previously for the additional building at the side of the garage is not being stuck to on this application. And it's totally different. For those that didn't come on site this morning, it's totally different to what was given from permission for. I asked as to why we hadn't enforced that. It's over 11 years old, so it's past the 4-year period, so we can't do anything about that. But one thing we can do is to stop any further additions to that the building that is not in line with the previous planning application. And I am quite happy to move this myself. I'm not going to let you come back to this at all. I'm quite happy to move this for officer's recommendation to refuse. Is there any more comments, please? Councillor
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other comments? I've got a mover and a seconder to refuse this application. All those in favour? Against? Applications are refused. Thank you. Item 7, this is a recommendation of detached dwelling modified proposals at Part 1, and to read about 59 Barber Shelley. We have had this one before. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application has been brought to the Woollen subcommittee as a representative departure from the Kirklees Tree Development Plan because the site allocated is conditional over time. So this is the wider site over here, and this is the area where the modified habitat would be located. The site is an open area of land to the rear of number 59 Farbank in Shelley. The site slopes downwards from west to east, and there are a number of mature trees on the northern boundary of the site. Planning Commission has sought a modified house type for Woollen dwelling. This plan here shows the 2017 application that was previously approved by members. As you can see, it's a contemporary design and 2 stories in height. This is the proposed plan, and the alterations are as follows. So there's a feature court here, there's additional openings proposed here and here. There's roof lights here to accommodate study in the loft. And the roofing material will change from artificial roof to standard steel effective. So in the opinion of officers, these changes are considered to be relatively minor. The changes contemporary appearance and some changes are considered to be acceptable in terms of visual unity. In terms of the scale and location of the proposed dwelling, this won't change, and there's no harm in terms of residential unity. One representation has been received in terms of highway safety, and as you can see from this plan, the previously approved access is as per the last application. So to conclude, the principles being established and the changes that are sought through this application are considered acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
No speakers. Members? Anybody?
Move on to the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Lawson, I think. Councillor Pinnock doesn't that sense. Right. We're moving a second to accept officers' recommendations, and that's to approve this application. All those in favour?